Good evening. Live from lockdown. It's American Hammers TV, part of the American Hammers Network, on a Wednesday night when we don't really have that much to talk about because, there's not that much going on. So if you're in the chat room, say hi to us and let us know what you'd like to talk about, what you're thinking. Tebow's with us. It's always good to see Tebow, our friend Trevor, the native of Chelmsford, England, who was nice enough to send me my Chelmsford City shirt that I still have and I still wear, although not in public because I don't go into public anymore. I just walk around the house and walk around the yard, and that's kind of what I do. Anyway, PJ's with us tonight. She lives in Kansas City. She's from San Francisco. Most people go the opposite way.
No, right?
That's okay. I'm from Dallas and I live in Boston. It's the same thing. You're really supposed to go the other direction. You know what I
Really?
mean?
I don't know. I think I'd rather live in Boston than in.
Oh, I would too. But I'm just saying, like, you usually go toward the sun and not away from it. You know. So anyway, Jason is in Charlotte, right?
That's true. I am in Charlotte, but I'm actually originally from the Bay Area as well. So I've also
yeah?
spent my time moving east. Yeah, I was in Texas, New York City, and now Charlotte. If I go any further east, it's probably going to be London, Berlin, someplace like that next.
You're just gonna drop off into the ocean.
Yeah, why not, man? At this rate.
At this point, just live on like a raft in the Atlantic or something. It's probably the safest place to be.
Right.
And then, of course, Selly, who is in Sacramento, serving in the Air Force. But you are, as your hat will tell us, a Denver guy originally.
Oh, yep, from Colorado.
Yep.
Just east of Denver.
So everybody, so we have a Western
All of it.
flair. Yeah, we have two Californians, a guy from Colorado, and then I'm from, where I'm from originally. So anyway, I see people are filling into the chat room nicely. That's good. It's good to see. Hi everybody. Let us know what you want to talk about. Yeah, a couple of things as we always do before we get started. Check out our website, AmericanHammers.net. As far as I know, you can still buy stuff there. It'll still get shipped to you. There's some cool things out there, all kinds of stuff, anything you'd ever want. I think we're still selling our scarves too. I haven't checked the PayPal account in a long time to see if anybody's bought a scarf. So if you have, yeah, there you go, right there. Yeah, they're in the background. Yeah, mine's downstairs. I should have brought it up. Yeah, so if you want a scarf, you can still get them. If you want some other stuff, if you want a framed print with the name of one of our shows on it, we have that. We have all crazy amount of stuff out there. It's nuts. If you want to come on the show,
I have stickers
yeah, there you go.
in the city.
Oh, kids,
Oh, that's
well,
pretty
that's the
sweet.
other thing.
I'm sorry.
I always forget to mention this is if you buy something from one of the supporters groups like Kansas City, then I think half of the money goes to the supporters group.
Yeah.
Just, to help them do whatever it is they do and finding pubs and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, help out your supporters groups, buy some supporters group stuff, and you can help fund, their activities for when we all get back to watching the football again on Saturdays and Sundays. And
Like I just got this flag for when we actually get to meet up, and then it's like I got to use it once, and now I gotta wait.
I know it's. Yeah, I haven't ordered a shirt this season. I usually get one when they go on sale at the end of the season, and now they're on 50% off.
Yeah.
But there's two things. One, the store is actually closed. The online store is actually closed. They're not
Oh, wow.
sending anything right now, which is reasonable. The other thing is like, do you want a shirt from like the COVID season? I mean, I don't know.
Wasn't
I'm
a
not
very
sure I
good
want to
season for us
commemorate that
anyway.
one. Yeah, well, it was that's the other thing. It was a dreadful season, so
Yeah.
At
may not
least
have
you
been
know what
worth
to
that
put on the
anyway.
shirt, right? COVID for the name and 19 for the number.
You know what? I seriously, I said a while back that if we stay up because of the shutdown, that I would get a West Ham COVID-19 shirt. But it's actually killed a lot of people, so I think
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm not going to do
Yeah.
that. Like I say before we started, my neighbor had it and was in ICU on a ventilator for like 10 days, and she's home. She's okay. I saw her husband outside earlier today. She's okay. She's recovering, but it is pretty bad. So I kind of don't want to walk around my neighborhood in a COVID-19 shirt. That may not go over great with everybody. Anyway, if you want to be on our channel, let us know. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, etc. If you're a West Ham fan from anywhere in the world and you just want to come on and talk, believe me, we got time. So, so tonight, I'm wearing this is my Issa Diop shirt that I got from a couple of seasons ago. Yeah. So I thought maybe we could start with Issa because the rumor is on that Spurs want him for 55, 60 million pounds, something like that. My thought on that is anybody else bidding 55, 60 million, and I probably sell him, but not to Spurs. Do you know what I mean? Just not
Right.
to
Yeah.
them.
It's not a
Almost
real
any other
number.
English club. Almost any other English club, but just not them. So what do you guys think of Diop? Worth that much money? It'd be a huge profit on what we paid for him.
Right.
I mean, a huge profit. Oh, and by the way, one little note. If this broadcast suddenly stops, it's because my work computer shut off unexpectedly. And we'll come back, so don't worry. Jason will come back too. Jason will come back too. If it just cuts off if it just cuts off in like 3 minutes, I'll get back on the phone. All right. So, no worries. Anyway, here comes Jason back again. So
sorry, that question was too controversial. It kicked me right off.
You got triggered.
Yeah.
You got triggered. Yeah. So what do you guys do? Do you sell Diop for that much money, and do you sell him to Spurs? What's your thought? And who wants to jump in first? Anybody? I don't care.
There's no way Issa Diop is really worth that much. I'm sorry. That's
No,
an
he's not worth
inflated
that
price.
much. Not even worth close to that much. Yeah.
Well, maybe taking the money wouldn't be so bad then. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that because I wanted to play devil's advocate, but no, I don't have to.
I think Issa Diop's a fine player. I mean, I don't think he's bad or anything like that, but at that point, we're getting offered, and we're going to have to make some changes and probably bring in some new players anyway. So, might as well have the funds to do that.
Yeah, and apparently we're skint and broke again, as we always are somehow.
Yeah.
We always are, and we're gonna have to sell multiple players, except not Declan Rice. So, what do you think, PJ? Would you sell Issa to Spurs or anybody?
I mean, if they're really offering that much, I think yes. It would sting a little going to Spurs, but yeah.
So when he scores the inevitable match winner in the 90th minute at London Stadium,
that's when we go, of course, because that's
right. The blood is on your hands at that point. You understand that, right? Because that is what will happen.
Yeah.
He'll be like Frank Lampard. He'll have every game he plays against. This will be the best game of his life. I don't selling. What would you? We got 2 for selling it. What would you do?
Oh man, if that number is real, I guess a couple of things can happen from that. Obviously, if Spurs are that desperate, 60 million and 60 million, I think you just kind of have to bite the bullet on that one. But the only other thing I can imagine happening is that it actually drives the price up for other teams that might want to get him, because he's not a bad player. He has a lot of potential. I think Lee froze. Think he has to come back. But he has a lot of potential. So I would say, maybe somebody else will be willing to pay more than that. But 60 million, I mean, especially if we're skint on money, might as well pay that. It'll suck, but it is the price of doing business, I guess.
Right.
It seems like there was a time when that amount of money was what a team was going to play for Luis Suarez at his peak, or one of these big name players, and now all the prices are just so inflated that it almost seems like it has to be some kind of silly rumor, but that that amount isn't impossible to think that a team would make an offer for. It's just hard to believe that it would be for Issa Diop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think last year, when he was a better player, the previous season, the one that we purchased him for, you could hear some rumors around that same amount. And I think he has had a dip in performance, even though he has had games where he has played at a high level. I think he still has his young moments, where the ball does get past him really easily. But I do think he is able to track back better than most and get back kind of to correct his mistake. Attacking, I remember he had that, speaking of Spurs, had that long run last year when we played away to Spurs in their stadium for the first time and almost scored. I think the moment kind of got to him and he just missed it. Sorry if I look distracted. I'm trying to get Lee back in here.
Yeah, no
but I mean,
the memes from that game, was it Antonio that scored, and then they made the memes where it was him sitting on the toilet on the.
Oh yeah. The stadium with the toilet. Yeah, that was pretty great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he does have a lot of potential. I personally enjoy him on the team. It's kind of weird how you would find a player like that kind of out of nowhere, but I mean, you look at Morrison, the gentleman who plays for Leicester. He came from Norwich, and nobody knew who he was, and now he's worth almost 100 million pounds. So, I mean, granted, he might be a higher caliber of player, but I mean, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Oh
No,
no.
Thanks, Sally.
back.
Thanks for letting me in. Yeah,
Two for one deal.
I got the big automatic. There's Tim. Yeah, I got my. I've been using my work computer to do the show because it's the only one I have right now. And somebody pushed through an automatic restart at 9 minutes after 9. So there it went. Anyway, yeah, but the good news is it didn't cut off. I thought the whole thing was going to cut off, but it didn't.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
So that's great.
I think
We're still going, which is great.
I think
Do what?
I think because Sully has, I think he's got admin privileges, which is nice, or at least had at one point, and because of that, he was able to keep the thing going. Yeah, don't ever let that happen again.
I didn't know it was going to happen. No, I didn't know it was going to happen. I got a warning, and I thought, well, anyway, I didn't think it was going to happen.
Well, we were just me and Adam and Steve Mothersoul and Alex Sheffield were just testing out the new game show off air last hour and working out some kinks and trying to get it prepared for this upcoming Wednesday. If anybody wants to be a contestant on the first game show that we do, it's like a fun little trivia game show called Hammer Shots. Lasts about half an hour, 45 minutes. Message us on social media and we'll get you on. And we need just 2 contestants every show. And it's actually hilarious. I literally put myself out of the room and watched them do it and let them pretend that they were doing it live. And it was freaking hilarious. And there he goes again.
Aww.
Awesome.
Boy. Damn it.
Anyway.
I did have to correct what I was saying because I said Morrison and I meant to say Madison, the guy from Leicester. I'm sure everybody knew who I was talking about, but that's my fault.
Madison with 2 D's. Yeah. What's his first name? I can't remember.
James? No, Jason? No.
Yeah, I was going to say James, but I think that's like the guy who
Jason?
wrote I think that's like the guy who wrote the Constitution.
Yeah.
It's James Madison.
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that.
All right,
So,
guys, I'm out of here. But listen, have a great show. Good seeing you. Good seeing you, PJ. Good seeing you, Jason.
Thanks for the Tim. I appreciate it.
Wait, before you go, we got to have the obligatory Tompkins shout out.
Oh, that's right. James Tompkins. Where is it?
Well, you said I told you. I told you. Ryan Fredericks bottled it on the esports thing. Did you guys see this?
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
that bum.
He played the guy from, was it Bournemouth or Burnley? I don't know who it was. Anyway, and he lost. And I said, Tompkins would have won.
He would have.
So,
Yeah, that's right.
We know that. We all know that
Definitely.
for sure. Yeah.
All right, guys.
It is
Have a great night.
Madison. Look at
I'll
this.
see you
Okay.
later.
All
I'll
right.
be watching, though. I'll be watching.
Thank you.
All right. Later.
Yeah,
I can get out of
I
here.
saw the other day. Or
It is James
yesterday,
Madison. Well, there you go.
Speaking of the FIFA, who was it? Wilfred Zaha was playing Raheem Sterling from Manchester City in the tournament that they have going on. And I believe Sterling won. It was at 4-3 or 5-4, and Wilfred Zaha was not happy about it. So anytime that Zaha is upset is a good day.
That's true. I hate that guy. I hate that guy for Troy Deeney reasons and for Romelu Lukaku reasons because he always scores against us.
Right.
Or Glenn Murray is another one, always scores against us. So yeah, of course he scores a lot of goals anyway. But yeah, I hate that guy. So yeah, that's good. So okay, I'd Sully, take me back for a second. Were you up for selling Issa then to Spurs?
Yeah, I mean, if the price tag is real, I would do it. Especially, like how you mentioned, we might not have the cash for much else. But I was also saying too that if that price is fake, or it's not fake, but if that price is real, and there's another team that is desperate enough to pay that for him, because at one time he did have that price tag attached to him, then it could just drive up an offer from another team or kind of be a bargaining chip for us. Like, okay, well, Spurs want this much. What about you, kind of thing?
I do think you can find a very good center back for half of what we'd sell him for. We paid something like 25 for him, I think. Something like 25 million pounds.
Mm-hmm.
2-3 seasons ago. Not that long ago. Balbuena cost, I think, 4 million. He was just an afterthought, and he had some pretty good performances for us. So, yeah. I think 60 million, 55 to 60 for a center back. As much as I like Issa, I don't want my shirt to be, outdated, but that's a lot of money, man.
Yeah.
Have we ever been? What was the most we've ever been given for a player? What's the most we've ever gotten for a player?
That's a good question.
Because I mean, I may be wrong here, but I can't imagine it's more than that. Would that be the record for the pub? I mean, I could be mistaken. I really don't know, but
I
that's
think
a lot of money for one of our players. From someone coming out of West Ham, who would pay that much typically?
No, you're totally right. I would have to look that up. Somebody in the chat room probably knows what the most we've ever sold.
Payet was £25 million. Wally said Payet was 25.
Yeah,
Payet
Payet
was
was
25.
more, except for his whole situation just kind of forced everyone's hand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How much?
I mean that was
how
a
much
sad.
did Arnautovic leave for? Because he might be the one.
Isn't that 40? No,
I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't either.
I
Seems like
know
so
that
long ago.
It's the
right.
well, exactly. It's the inflation that has done it, because when West Ham sold Rio Ferdinand to Leeds, because remember they sold him to Leeds before Manchester United.
Mhm.
I think that was a British transfer record or close to it, but it was like £15 million or something, 20 years ago. So I don't know if you factored in inflation what it would be, but it might be Payet or it might be Arnautovic. It's got to be somebody in the last couple of years because of the way the price of the players have gone up. But I don't think Kiwi Hammers. AJ says 22 million.
Yeah, I'm just looking it up online. It says 23 million pounds.
Yeah, so
For
this
Payet?
For Arnautovic. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
for Arnautovic. So this would be more than double the most we've ever sold a player for. That is starting to sound worth it. He's a good he's a good young player. He's a good performer, but man, we could really shore ourselves up at like left back, for instance. We could maybe Allaire only cost us 45 million, and whether you think that was money well spent or not, I mean the point is you're in like quality striker territory with 60 million. So
right,
something to think about. It really is. The other thing I wanted to see if you guys want to talk about for a minute is Newcastle. Newcastle's getting the money, getting bought out by Saudi, consortium. I don't know who it is. The Saudis are all run by the Saud family anyway, so it's kind of who they are. So Newcastle is going to live the dream, probably be a Champions League club here. Mark, look around. Okay, well, not now because we're all in our houses, but when we're all released again, look around and see how many Newcastle shirts you see around your neighborhood. There won't be any. There'll be zero.
Yeah.
Look around 3 years from now and there'll be hundreds.
Yeah.
They won't know who Alan Shearer was. They won't know anything about the history of the club. They won't even know where Newcastle is.
Outside
they won't know
the movie Goal. Don't know that.
Okay, they might know the movie Goal, right, which is really pretty good. They might know, they don't know, they won't know what a Geordie is, but they'll be Newcastle fans,
Right.
for life. It's going to happen. It was happened with Chelsea and Manchester City, and Manchester United have been that way for a long time, and Liverpool, somewhat a lesser extent. But I want to say something that I hope nobody gets upset about. When these big buyouts happen, I always think the same thing. I wouldn't want the money from that source. It's not a political thing. It's not a religious thing at all. It's just that Saudi Arabia is a country where women are not allowed to drive or like own property or even leave the house in some cases or like show their heads, nobody votes because it's a kingdom. So there's none of that anyway. It's a very oppressive, repressive place. Some of these people, some of these wealthy oil barons who bought these clubs are kind of some of the most evil people in the world in a lot of ways. They manipulate people's livelihoods. They manipulate markets. I know, Qatar is building those World Cup stadiums with literal slave labor. I mean, no joke, slave labor. These workers are brought in from India. They have their passports taken. They're crammed into tiny little apartments and they work for basically nothing and they can't leave. That's effectively that's slavery. That's what's, Again, I don't want to come off as racist in any way. It's not what I'm going for. I'm not talking about the people of these countries. I'm talking about the people who are in charge and the people with the money. Okay. I'm talking about the people who can spend billions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars in a football club. Honestly, I wouldn't want to be associated with that. I'm just the way I feel. Even Roman Abramovich is a Russian oligarch, which means he's buddies with Putin, which means he's not a good guy, but I would take that over getting it from one of these big, oil-rich families that, runs these oppressive sort of regimes. It's just, I just wouldn't want it from there. I wouldn't want it from there. A lot of people would disagree with me. Probably most people would disagree. Gets Gold, Sullivan, Brady out of our hair, gets the Champions League, all this stuff. I don't want it that way. And I'm wondering if you guys have any feelings about that, if you care, if it matters to you, what you think.
I'll go last because I kind of have a question to tag on to what I'll say.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead,
So I'll go
Jason.
last.
Well, I mean, I'm in agreement. I mean, you don't want owners that are involved in something shady. And I actually think Abramovich is probably involved in a lot more, or has financial ties to a lot more than, we would ever really want to be dealing with.
I think he's very dirty. I think he's extremely dirty. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
I think
dirty.
the takeaway that I would look at is, what's the trade-off? Because you not only have to get involved with some owners that you might not agree with or that are involved in something you don't like, but then look at how much Manchester City has spent. Look how much Chelsea has spent just from a purely business standpoint. For return on investment, it's an unbelievable waste of money. For the amount of money that these clubs have spent, they should win something every year. Every year they should win something. They should win the league. They should win cups. They should be winning the Champions League. And the amount of money that they've spent to the amount of trophies that they have, it is, I don't know. It's
not a good ratio,
waste of money.
It's funny you say that, Jason, because I had a good friend years ago who was a big Real Madrid fan, and before you criticize him, his grandparents were from Madrid. He was legit. He was not, just a guy who clung to the club because of success. He had family from Madrid. He spoke Spanish. He'd been there. He was legit. And he always said the same thing. He always said, so Chelsea bought a Premier League and eventually a Champions League. Real have won Champions League like 15 times, including Europe Cup of the Champions League. They've won the Spanish League like 35 times, and Manchester City have never gotten a Champions League trophy, and they're not going to anytime soon because I don't think it's going to come back this season, and they're banned after that. Right. So yeah, and listen, I mean, what Jazz is saying, I think most people probably feel this way, and I sympathize with that feeling. I don't even like the fact that David Sullivan was in kind of a sleazy business as a pornographer,
Right.
Now gold selling dildos and panties, I don't care about that. That doesn't matter to me.
It's just funny.
It's just funny, right? Because it's just funny that guys like that run the club,
Yeah.
I wouldn't listen. I'd always support West Ham. I'd celebrate the victories and all that. I would just prefer it not to come that way. That's how I feel. I prefer it not to come that way. What do you think, PJ? Does this strike a chord with you at all?
Yeah, a little, but also, was it Qatar that bribed FIFA to get the World Cup and that kind of whole thing?
Yeah, well, everybody bribes FIFA. That's how FIFA works. But yeah, Qatar did bribe FIFA to get the World Cup. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Now the other thing is, and this is listen. I'm with Tom on this. I mean, this Newcastle thing is really bad for us. It's bad. It's one, if you want a huge buyout like that, this is one less, source of money that's out there. One more that went to another club and not to West Ham. There's another club that we're not going to be able to compete with. It's going to be 2 guaranteed losses every season. We know how this works. You know what I mean? We know how this works. It's a bad deal for everybody else in the Premier League, except for those few clubs that have the money. And I don't really begrudge Newcastle fans. They seem like good fans. I don't know that many. I've known a few. They're long suffering like us. I don't really begrudge them. I begrudge the fans who are going to be fans 3 years from now when they'd never heard of Newcastle. Today, it's just a personal preference. But the other thing is, yeah, and I don't want to reveal too much about myself, but I do tend to agree with this too. I think that's true. The question is, though, Jazz, shady background is bad enough, but when you have these places where there are fundamental human rights abuses, and I know our country's record isn't perfect. I get it. I know our hands are not clean. I do. I'm not trying to absolve us of anything, or the UK even for that matter. But when you have these fundamentally oppressive regimes, I don't want to be associated with that. That's just how I feel. Sorry if I'm coming off as too, I don't know, too much of a bleeding heart. But the other thing I wanted to talk about is, where did it go? It's in here somewhere. Red Bull, supposedly, some jackass on Twitter is saying Red Bull's put in another offer for the club. I don't really believe it. This comes up every time somebody buys some other club, then it's Red Bull's going to buy West Ham, and I don't think it's going to happen. But, that's the kind of thing where the danger isn't so much that you're associated with something oppressive, if the Red Bull's really gross. The danger is that they're going to rebrand the club. That everything's going to be Red Bull West Ham.
West Ham Red Bulls. I mean,
well, because I think Red Bull is branding. That's what Red Bull does. The drink is incidental. You know what I mean? The drink keeps you awake when you're getting pounded on, vodka or whatever, and it supposedly gives you energy, whatever. It's nasty. I can't stand the stuff. But anyway, it's gross. So the drink Red Bull is a brand that sells a beverage and not, the other way around. They're going to rebrand the club if they want to buy it. That's what they do.
Yeah.
They have 2 Formula One teams. They're both have Red Bull branding. They have multiple football clubs, New York, Salzburg, the one in Germany. I can't remember where it is. I think there's another one somewhere. That's what they do. So are we willing to be Red Bull West Ham? I know I've asked this before, but what do you think?
Well, I mean, our current owners have already begun the process of rebranding. I mean, I
they've
cannot
ripped the
stand the
soul
new
out of the
crest
club.
and the West Ham London. We're not West Ham London, so I don't know why the crest even says that. So the process of rebranding our club and changing the identity of the club, it's already underway. So, I mean, yeah, I don't want it to be Red Bull West Ham. If it was the West Ham playing at the Red Bull Stadium, I mean, that would be all right with me.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But and listen, I want Gold, Sullivan, Brady out just like everybody else. I'm on that bandwagon too. I want them out. I think they're a disaster. And again, even their background is not superb. But beyond all that, they're just bad owners. But I don't know. What do you think, PJ? You going to put on a Red Bull West Ham hat with
No. I would still watch. I probably would still watch, but I would never buy anything with a Red Bull brand on it, I think.
That's interesting because I would never not be a West Ham supporter. I mean, at this point, it's not going to get that much worse. Well, it could, but
Don't say that. You're just going to jinx it.
I know. We could be Portsmouth, or we could be, any Coventry. You know what I mean? I know it could be worse. We're still in the Premier League right now, but greater point here is we have bad owners. So I still watch West Ham, but not necessarily buy into the Red Bull branding explosion. I mean, that makes sense. What do you think, Sally? Would you care?
Yeah, I would care. It's interesting though. A couple comments in the chat. Adam has said if they were selling the Red Bull, he'd be 100%, or the Red Bull. If we were selling the Bowling Ground, he'd be 100% against Red Bull. But since the soul is already gone, he's fine with it. And then Thomas said that it's against Premier League rules to change the name of the club, so they couldn't change it anyways. That's true. I mean, perfect. But yeah, if the name of the stadium changed, I mean, the London Stadium is not really. There's no branding rights there, anyways. Like,
right. You can change the name of the stadium all you want. Yeah.
Yeah.
They can't change the name of the club.
Yeah, most teams that don't play, I guess, in their original stadium outside of Tottenham, they all kind of have a different name to their stadium too. But, I mean, if the name couldn't change, I'd be all for it. If the logo didn't change, you see the West Ham logo, but you have crossed bulls or something like that. That'd be hilarious. But I don't know. And it's kind of.
Well, I think the thing is, I think that's what you might get.
Yeah, I'm sure you see a Red Bull. You see a bull somewhere on there. I think that part would be inevitable, but I'm not sure. I mean, if it goes to changing the name, I don't know if that also goes into the badge or anything like that. But as Jason was saying earlier, the second we moved into the London Stadium,
they changed
the London Stadium. The logo did change. I mean, it honestly looks kind of like a poor man's Arsenal, shield, just with a different front.
It does.
Yeah, I mean, especially compared to what we just came from as far as logos go, that was pretty sweet. But and then I know, and I'm not 100%, versed on the issue, but I know Saudi Arabia has been doing a lot to kind of change the turn the wheel, I guess, on everything going on over there. WWE, for anybody who is a big WWE person, for the past couple of years, they've had 2 big events held in Saudi Arabia. And a big part of that too was because they started allowing women into the stadiums with men, which to us obviously sounds crazy, but to them is a huge step in the right direction.
Yeah, it is. It is. I agree with that.
Yeah, and just like you said, nobody is completely, innocent as far as nations go in their history.
No, absolutely not.
At the same time, I mean, if you're Newcastle, right? If you're the people, I don't know if owners, if that's the right word, but if you're selling the club, you see all that money, and it's not really much for them to give. I mean, it's going to be hard for them to say no. And then as a fan, it on one hand, you could be upset with it. And on the other hand, if your team 4 or 5, 6 years down the road, because I mean, 2008, Manchester City got new owners, and by 2012 they were winning the league or
I
something
think
like
so.
that.
Yeah,
So,
something like that. Yeah, yeah.
No,
No,
and
it's
Newcastle,
going to happen. Yeah,
yeah, no, it's inevitable. I mean, obviously they'd have to be smarter about it than Manchester City was in terms of financial fair play.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be interesting to see, and I mean, it might even force GSB to have to sell too, because if we're going to be, if babies are going to stay in the corner, if you will, people aren't going to be too happy with that.
I don't know if I'm not sure, in all honesty, why we haven't gotten more attention from a big money buyer. I mean, Red Bull, I guess, is a big money buyer to some extent. And listen, if it's something, again, I'm with Foe. If it's this, fine. You know what I mean? Put it on the shirt. That's fine. I don't care about that. Name the arena after it. Awesome. I know you can't change the name of the club under Premier League rules, but you can certainly put anything you want on the badge. You can put anything you want on the branding. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I do miss the castle, but if you look at the flag behind you, Sully, we had times in the past when I love the castle. Well, I got it, I got it here.
Yeah.
But we had times in the past when we had just the crossed hammers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Moore played with just the crossed hammers. Of course, they didn't have London at the bottom,
Yeah.
which I'm with Jason. That's at least say East London. I mean, London's a collection of neighborhoods. Really, it's not. I mean, it doesn't mean anything just to be from London.
Yeah.
There's no identity to that. So.
You got to have the Premier League playing out of London.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So I just don't know. I'm not sure why we're not a more attractive investment option. Maybe it's because we don't own our ground. I don't know. I have no idea. But I feel as though we have a huge number of fans. We're actually a big TV draw, at least in this country. Believe it or not, our games do real. I've looked at the ratings, and they do really well on television in the U.S.
Ever broadcast them.
Well, that's what I mean. They're not on very often, but when they are, and we don't have to be playing Liverpool or Man City. I mean, we'll play Southampton and get a big audience.
Yeah.
And we found out doing this show and this network, there are at least tens of thousands of West Ham fans in the U.S. and maybe more. And that's just here in this country. I think we have a big presence all over the world for a club that's never won anything, or hasn't won much, and hasn't won anything in many years. I don't know why we're not a more attractive investment. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? I mean, what do we do if we wanted to get the big money from the Middle East or from Russia, or what's holding us back?
I'm not sure. I don't know, because maybe there's just too much to have to improve for someone to come and buy us. Regardless of where the money's coming from. Because you'd have to fix up the training ground. The location where the stadium is at, is in a nice location, but it's still pretty ridiculous to get to it. I mean, you can really only literally get to it by the tube. And it's right next to a mall complex that wants nothing to do with it.
Right.
There's,
which is so weird. I mean, like here in this country, we build a mall next to the stadium because you want a mall next to a stadium.
Yeah.
But in
come through and shop.
I think a lot of it too is so in Denver, and I'm sure I know Philadelphia, a couple other places are like this too. You'll have your sporting complexes, and then you'll have a lot of bars and just places where you can hang out before and after. And anybody who hasn't been to London Stadium, you don't really get that. You'll have a couple of bar-ish places around, that kind of turn into a makeshift, big pregame spot, but that's not what they're used for. And then you have a huge walk-up, to the ground. I don't know. I mean, it being in London is not bad. Obviously, being at the Bowling wasn't going to get that big name money person just because, it's too small. But, like I said, it's probably just more than just, okay, well, now you play in London. That's great, because there's still a lot that has to be fixed. The stadium itself has to still be worked on because seats are still way too far away. Like I said,
they have like zip ties holding some of it together, apparently, from the pictures I've seen.
So just like Fosha, we don't have any assets. We just it's a pretty mess, is what you could say.
But my thought is that stadium. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, the operator of the stadium was almost administration. Has been in financial trouble a lot. And I think yeah, we don't. The club doesn't really pay much rent for it. I mean, I think it's an extremely cheap deal for us, which is why we have it. But it doesn't seem insane to me that a buyer could buy that stadium. And then I mean, it doesn't seem like it would be a massive, investment, because I think the owner is maybe semi desperate to sell it, or at least not have it on the books. And then if you ran it properly, if you could turn it into a proper football stadium, I think you could do tremendous things with it. Not just football, but I mean all sorts of events. They already have baseball and concerts and stuff like that. It's got to be a moneymaker. Stadiums should make money,
Yeah, did you see those baseball, the Red Sox and Yankees games that they had?
Yeah, it was sold out.
It was, and it was just like home run after home run after home run in there. That was crazy.
Yeah, they ended like 18-16 and stuff like that because it was, well, it's not a baseball stadium,
Right,
so
yeah, the shape of the field is wrong.
the shape of the field is wrong, and they had short distances to right field, left field, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I get that we don't own the stadium. I do. I just don't. Again, and we can't throw that in as a package deal because we don't own it. But I don't think it's totally beyond the realm of possibility that some wealthy enough investor could say, well, I'll buy the stadium and I'll buy the club.
Mhm.
And then you're running everything, then you do what you want. The fans are showing up.
Yeah.
The brand is strong. I mean, no, we don't really have a lot of assets, but the brand is a really strong asset. Look at us sitting here right now talking about this, where we are. Like not a single one of us is in the UK. So it's frustrating to me. But I mean, I'm not looking forward to Newcastle's new crop of obnoxious fans.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, one thing Tony was saying too in the chat, he said Upton Park wasn't always great, but it was ours, and I definitely agree. And I'm definitely not trying to put down the bowling in any shape or form, but I think just the simple fact that you can only get right around 30,000 plus isn't going to be a huge draw for a billionaire to want to come in unless they can expand on it a lot, which from what I hear, you couldn't really do. And the only difference with that too is Newcastle Stadium that they've been in for a long time is almost a 70-seater. It's one of the biggest in the Premier League. I think that's a huge difference too. But I don't know, because just like you said, Lee, we have it's a huge team, got fans all over the place. Especially in London or in England rather. You have to kind of fight for the away seats when you go and you try to go to a game.
We have the highest rate of what's the word I'm looking for? We have the largest percentage of filled seats. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like I can't think of the phrase I'm looking for, but we fill like 99.7% of our seats or something like that, officially anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the highest in the Premier League, or among the highest in the Premier League.
Yeah.
And it's a big stadium, so the fans are there. This is what what Thomas is getting at is kind of what I'm getting at. Is like I feel as though the stadium is it's up for grabs. It couldn't. Yeah. It's tanking. The taxpayers are paying for it. It's got to be one of those things where you could get that thing for a song. I mean, I kind of think the club should have bought it anyway, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah. One thing too, when you go to it, I mean, the bowling was set up like it felt like a stadium in the sense of if you're on the second tier, you have food shops, restrooms, and access to upstairs, downstairs. But at the London Stadium, if like when me, Gary, went to a game last season, we were sitting towards the top, and if you had to use the bathroom, you had to go all the way down to the ground floor to use the restroom. Yeah, all the restrooms and food vending is on the ground floor. The food is actually before you even walk in. They have restrooms beforehand, but most of the food, a majority of it, I should say, is outside. There's the team shop is right outside. It's actually a really nice shop, but it's outside the stadium. Because I mean, you think about it, when the Olympics came there, it wasn't meant to be a stadium for stuff like this.
Right.
No.
I mean, you walk in, it honestly, I mean, it looks nice from outside, but it's a skeleton inside. It's just concrete, steps, poles, and then you have a ground. So I mean,
Let me ask you this, because I haven't been there. I haven't been there, Sally. Or anybody who's been there, and even when the Olympics were going on, before it was at our stadium, I thought it looks like it was built with Tinker Toys. It's just the most rickety looking, and I keep hearing about how it's world class and all this. It doesn't look like a proper. It looks structurally weak or something. Those little,
The zip tie things don't help.
yeah, the little Tinker Toy things coming up out of it. I mean, when I think of a stadium, these arenas being built around Europe now, or even some in the U.S., I mean, they look, I don't know, bigger, more imposing. I mean, as much as I detest Jerry Jones, I can't stand the man. You got to admit he built a great stadium. I mean, that's a stadium. I mean, that thing's solid as a rock, and you see it in person, and it comes out of the ground, looks like the Death Star.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the only difference between the two is, Jerry World is, I mean, it's a multi-use stadium, but its main purpose is American football. The London Stadium, a multi-purpose stadium, whose main focus was for the Olympics. So, I mean, the Tinker Toy stuff is stuff that you use, from the ends behind the goals to bring it in because those seats aren't retractable. That they're built-in stands, So I mean, it honestly is just like scaffolding that forms into stands on either side. Now, like the left and the right, outside of like where you can see on the camera, that's the state. Like those aren't brought in. But if those seats on the ends weren't kind of constructed to where they are, you'd have even more space away from the field, behind the nets, which is your biggest area where you get crowd interaction. So. I mean, it's definitely not ideal, and it looks really, really funky when you go and see it in person. But like I said, maybe if a new owner was able to build a new stadium, I mean, there's not that much room in London to do that.
I think you'd have to use the same. I think you'd have to build it where it is and just rebuild it, basically.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You definitely have to take it down. Maybe go out and play in Wembley for a couple seasons.
Oh man, yeah, maybe. Oh, it didn't go great for Spurs. I don't know how it'd go for us, but
you gotta do what you gotta do.
Maybe we can play at Rush Green. play where the ladies play. Play where the women's team plays. I don't know, something like that. Yeah, I think this is really what it's all about. I mean, it was a cheap deal, and the other argument is, and I do agree that what a lot of people have said in the chat room is, it sounded like a good idea at the time. I think a lot of fans supported the move to the stadium more than would admit it now, but we didn't get what we were promised. We didn't get the proximity to the ground, up to the pitch. We didn't get the spending on players that we thought we were going to get. It just hasn't, and plus somebody said this way back up in the chat room, and I think it might have been Jazz said, the board have actually spent some money, but they've meddled with managers. They've messed around with player contracts. Sullivan brings in these players he sees on YouTube, and he's like, you got to buy this guy. He brings in like Zaza and guys like that because he gets and they turn out to be total disasters. So
right,
yeah.
I'm not sure I agree that fans were more or less on board, because that was not my experience talking to people. But generally speaking, it was the move no one asked for. That's the thing. I mean, we didn't move there to attract a new owner. The new owners took us there to do something big. And what's the main thing that's really a hindrance to having a new billionaire owner come in and swoop us up? I mean, the stadium is, of course, a big part of it. The other part of it are willing sellers on the part of our current ownership. And I don't think they really have an intention of letting go of this. I think they're going to try to milk it for everything they can. But they've, I think, shot themselves in the foot, because I think to unload it now without a stadium situation that's better than the one we have now, I think it'll be hard to do that.
I think it'll be hard to do it too. And you're right, Jason. I guess I remember being on like Knees Up Mother Brown around the time of the stadium move. And I mean, it was not overwhelmingly anti-move. Do you know what I mean? The way it is now, because we've seen what the result is, and we have more of an idea of what the stadium actually looks like and sounds like. Nobody likes it. What I remember from that time, and this however long ago that is, 5-6 years ago, was, I mean, there was debate, right? And there were strong opinions, but a lot more fans than I thought would. And again, that's just one source. All right, that's not, I'm not pretending that that's the whole West Ham fan base. That's like a few hundred people, maybe a couple thousand people on a message board. It's not necessarily representative, but it's a sampling anyway. And I was like maybe 50-50 to my memory. You know what I mean? Maybe even a little more tilting toward moving because they were giving us this line about, well, this is how we get to the next level.
Oh man, they talked it up so much, and
Yeah.
got the players to talk it up. It was just like kind of shoved down our throats.
And
They had a 5-year plan to get us in the Champions League, and I think we're on year 9 of that now.
yeah, I know.
Right.
That reminds me of many years ago. I wrote for a magazine, and the company that owned the magazine was bought by a Japanese company. Well, it's bought by SoftBank. It's big Japanese, it's still around. SoftBank. SoftBank bought us and said it had a 600-year plan for the company I was working for, and I think sold the company within
That's foresight.
Yeah, no, they said they had a 600-year plan, and they sold us within 3 years. They're like, ah. And by the way, their timing was good because it was before publishing totally tanked, so I don't blame them for doing it. But 600-year plan did not come to fruition. But I think the point you made, Jason, it's a move nobody asked for. That's true. Nobody asked for it. I mean, whether people were for it or against it, nobody asked for it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, as you said, it wasn't like, oh, this is going to bring in a new ownership. It's just like, no, we're just going to do this, and of course the promises haven't come to fruition. Yeah, this is another thing that I think is, it's so expensive. I mean, I would like to think that, if I don't know. It's expensive. Well, I know some of our, and actually some of our tickets are some of the cheapest tickets in the Premier League, depending on where you sit, which they probably should be. But I don't know. I'd like to think that if I lived in London, I'd go to every match, but I don't think I could afford it.
Yeah.
especially in a city like that, that's so, it costs so much. Anyway, I'm looking at the chat room to get some more inspiration here since I'm running out of stuff to talk about. Other than the fact that, in typical West Ham fashion, apparently we're looking at a couple of players from the Championship now, a couple of guys from Nottingham Forest. Have you guys seen this? I don't remember who they were. I don't remember their names. I think it's a striker and a winger from Forest. We're supposed to be able to get them for yeah, I understand. Jazz, I know what you mean. It's cheap. Yes, that's what I mean. It's cheap because we could be charging a lot more, making a lot more money. I understood what you meant. But it would still be expensive for me. Compared to the old days when I always hear about in the 70s and 80s where you like walked in and put your quid in and like you went through the turnstile and you packed into the ground. Anyway. Yeah, so I don't know about this. Maybe I got 2 kids and a mortgage, and I'm not so sure about this.
We started a GoFundMe for you.
Yeah, I was going to say I'd like to think so, but I don't know. Oh yeah, Matty Cash. That's right. One of them's named Matty Cash, and the other guy I don't remember his name. If you know anything about him, let me know. Or about these guys, let me know. Okay, one of them's a right back. Thank you for doing my research for me, which I clearly did not do. I don't know. Have you guys heard about this, PJ or Jason or Sally?
I haven't.
No, honestly, most of the transfers I've heard for the Premier League, honestly, just kind of revolve around Manchester United. Haven't really heard too much for anybody else.
Yeah, yeah, 25 million for the pair is what I've heard. It's Matt Cash and somebody else. Matt Cash only sounds familiar because it makes me think of Johnny Cash. So I don't think I actually know who he is. It makes me think of Matthew Upson and Johnny Cash. Anyway, so that's about all I've heard, like, transfer wise. I don't know. What else are you guys thinking about tonight? I'm running out of steam a little bit.
I did see something too. Somebody had posted a screenshot of Issa Diop live on Instagram, and Marko Arnautovic had commented on it, saying that he'd welcome a return back to.
Oh
to West Ham.
Yeah, we talked. Yeah, that's right. And we are in for this QPR guy too. Jazz is right. Can't think of his. Yeah, EB something. All these transfer. We don't even know what the transfer window is going to be. So I take these rumors with an even bigger grain of salt than usual.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Arnautovic did. He was on Masuaku's Instagram.
There you go. Yeah.
And they were like, and there was a screenshot of him saying, you want me to come back to West Ham? No problem. I'll come back. we talked about this last week. We can talk about it again because what else we're going to talk about? Would you take him back?
Yeah,
Hmm.
I would.
I would too.
I would.
What do you think, Jason? Would you take him?
You know what? Yeah, when he was on, he was really on. He's a great player. He can score. He can make plays. Definitely, it's not his skill that concerns me. It's sort of the toxicity he might bring to the locker room, or just kind of the general attitude. We went through enough with Payet, and to go through it with Arnautovic once kind of seems silly enough, and to have to do it again seems almost insane. I think a lot of our problems, when you look at our players on paper, I think we have a fairly decent team. I think a lot of West Ham's problems historically have been psychological. I say that all the time. And I think that bringing someone back into the mix where there might have been some, a clash of personalities, I don't get it. And to go back to old managers and back to old players, it's not really us moving forward, is it?
No, yeah, you definitely have a good point.
No, it's not. But he scored goals.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, that's really all that
Jason, your
counts, isn't it?
argument is 100% cogent and reasonable and rational, and you are, I'm sure, right. And I'm reacting to this emotionally and not rationally. Emotionally, I just want my shirt to be relevant again. Fired out of its shirt from a couple of years ago.
That's funny because I'm saying like I'm emotional about it because I'm just like I hold a grudge kind of, So I'm like, you were a big douchebag and you left and I don't want you back.
Well, I think a lot of it too, and I know I've said it in the past, and it's not like it's something that people don't know, but West Ham is that working man's club, where we're not, the top 6 teams, to where, people that want to leave for more money is just a common thing, or they're not that vocal about it, I guess, because the whole Arnautovic thing was pretty insane. From his brother saying this to oh no, it's not happening, to okay, well, I'm actually going out to China kind of thing. But I think the timing of it too wasn't great, because it was just right after Payet, and he was our next kind of marquee player.
He was.
But then I guess on the purely on the soccer side of it, I think he did score goals, but at this point he's only scored 3 more goals than Haller did, and in Arnautovic's highest goal scoring season, he scored like 10. And I think Haller's at 7 or 8 right now. So, which, like you said in the past, it's not hard to be West Ham's top goal scorer. But at the same time, I think it would be an interesting pairing. I do also agree with Jason. I don't think the team is bad. Like I've said this in the past, there was a point where we were sitting 4th at one point this year.
Mm-hmm.
So
that was a fun weekend.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and then injuries happen, and we all know what happened after that. But yeah, so it'd be nice. But I think if you were to bring it back, like, you'd have to for sure know that the other options we have at striker aren't good enough.
Right.
You'd have to know that for a fact first before you want to take another flyer on him.
I think the caveat here for me is Bowen, who does look like a really good player. To me, Haller and Arnautovic up front, that's nasty. That's just nasty. I mean, if you can keep him from destroying the whatever morale is left at the club, and maybe you can't, I don't know. The 2 of them up front, I think, would be fantastic. And then you throw Bowen in there, or you move Arnautovic to, he's really a natural winger. You move him to maybe the right wing. You throw Bowen up front with Haller. I don't know. You put Souček in the midfield, and then you get like an actual, like, sort of can't think of the word I'm looking for. Some link up play. Do you know what I mean? So we're not isolating one guy up front the whole time. I just think Arnautovic would be a great facilitator. I think he'd score some goals, and I think we would really take it to some center backs with him and Haller up front, or him, coming up the wing with Bowen and Haller up front, or some combination like that. Throw Fornals in there too with Souček, and you got a real, and maybe Anderson if he can get his stuff together out on the left wing, and I think he got something there. Then you have an Antonio to come in the last 30 minutes.
I feel like it would be just our luck that like Arnie and Haller would not get along at all and like fight over the limelight or whatever, and like it would,
that's probably what would happen. In all seriousness, I'm sure you're right. I'm sure. First of all, I don't think he's coming back. I mean, an Instagram comment thrown out on Arthur Masuaku's Instagram, it probably doesn't mean anything. It's just an offhand comment. We just have nothing else to talk about. But yeah, you're right, PJ. I mean, if he did come back, there'd be some sort of like
It would be something crazy.
something bad would happen. Either he wouldn't get along with Allaire or Bowen or somebody like that, or he'd immediately break his leg. Because that's how it always works, right?
Yeah.
I don't think he's coming back. I don't think there's any chance he's coming back. But
I do think he misses actual football though, because I don't know what he's been playing in China, but I know for a fact it's nothing because nobody's talking about him. He could have scored 30 goals right now, and nobody would know or care about it.
Right.
So I think that's a big aspect of it too. And it could honestly be one of those things where he comes back to West Ham, scores 15, 18 goals, something like that, and then asks for a transfer somewhere else. Whether it's in the Premier League or another European club. But I think that's a big deal of it too, because that was a lot of the reason why he wanted to leave is he felt like he wasn't getting paid enough, for the production he was doing. But I will say on the field though, he was a dog. Like he looked like he wanted to make the guy across him look bad, and excuse me, my apologies. I did see a video. I don't know if it was.
Don't let us keep you awake.
No. I'm still adjusting to this.
You've been working hard. The rest of us been sitting at home, starting our computers. You've been working hard. So yeah,
I've been working. I don't know if I'll say it was hard, but but no. When we were playing Everton away a couple of seasons ago, I think it was Arnie's last season here, where the ball was in our box and it was cleared out, and he had about a 60, 70-yard run just to make sure it went out of bounds. So, I mean, when he wants to put in the shift, he'll put in the shift, but
he always did.
You don't want to base your team's success on what ifs, which kind of seems like what we've been doing, recently. But if we can go into a transfer table and get maybe 2 or 3 other players that are like Bowen and Souček, I think we'd be in decent hands. I think, because on paper, our team is a top 10 team. They just need to play like it.
Right.
I agree. I've thought that all season. And a lot of the pundits said the same thing. Early on, they had us in the top 6, maybe top 8. They had us like in real contention for Europe. And then it started that way. And then it all collapsed. One thing that we should talk about that Ray just sent me, appreciate Ray sending this. So our favorite guy, Mark Lawrenson from BBC, who hates West Ham, he says if there's, and I got this on my phone, so sorry, I'm reading it, but if there's no chance of playing football, this is from Claret and Hugh, by the way. So we all know Claret and Hugh. There's no chance of playing football, and they write the season off. Average points per game is the fairest way to sort out the points and positions, according to Mark Lawrenson, who, remember, he hates West Ham. You divide the number of points you've got now by the number of games you have played, then multiply that by the number of games you've got left, and onto your existing add that onto your existing points for your final total. Oh God, that sounds awful. Just the worst.
Trying to listen to that just sounds fun.
It's like an SAT question.
Yeah, I couldn't even follow it. I'm bad at math, I'll admit, but I couldn't even follow it. I was like, that doesn't mean anything to me at all. Evidently. This says using the average points method, West Ham would finish on 35.4 points, along with Watford and Bournemouth. But goal differential would save them. That I think that means us. Mm-hmm. With the Cherries taking the drop. Okay, I'm all for it then. Let's do it. But then he says, wait a minute. He says using a different model by splitting average points separately for home and away games, then recalculating the projected total based on the number of home and away games each team has left, Bournemouth climbs out of the bottom 3 and West Ham would be relegated. So it is guaranteed that is what will happen. If they settle this thing through some sort of stupid mathematical formula, I mean, I gotta think that the clubs that get relegated are going to take some sort of legal action. I don't think there's any way they accept that.
No,
I think we should just call it as it is and give Liverpool the trophy, but it gets a little asterisk. So.
Yeah.
This is what I've been saying for a while now, and I don't think the season's going to play out. I really don't. And I listen. I fear the worst about this coronavirus stuff. I don't even really want to talk about it, but I think it may be quite a while before we see football again. And I'm talking about like, maybe not this calendar year. I don't know. We'll see. Well, we don't know. Nobody knows.
I just got half-season tickets for Sporting, and then all this happened. And I was so excited that Reed got here, and he's in Kansas City, and his family's still in London. But I see pictures of him. He's living in some high-rise over at Power and Light District, and he's quarantined of everybody. And
yeah, but he's there.
Yeah, he's here.
I wanted to go see him when he played in New England in August, but who knows what's going to happen now? I mean, I don't know. I have no idea. There's just no way to know. Oh, this is interesting. Now, Jazz says German football will be back next week. The Germans have just sort of crushed this thing somehow. I don't know how they've done it, but I will only say, all I'll say is everything I've read is that if you open up too early, it comes back. Like Singapore is a really good example where Singapore had pretty much flattened the curve. Singapore had pretty much crushed the coronavirus pandemic and then opened back up to foreign travelers, and it came back and now they've had to shut everything down again. So I don't know. This is just what I'm reading. I'm no expert. I only read what people say. Anyway, but the point is, to me, if this mathematical formula thing happens, I think give Liverpool the trophy, put an asterisk on it so we can make fun of them for another however many years before they win it again.
Right.
And then bring it, bring up West Brom and Leeds, because I think they did well enough to come up. I know it wasn't mathematically a sure thing, but they were pretty much, first and second all season. 22 team premiership. Don't relegate anybody, because to me relegation is too harsh a penalty if you didn't actually go down, unless you had 3 points or something and it was a mathematical certainty, but that's not the case in the Premier League. And just have 22 teams, or you know what, bring up Fulham and friggin' Nottingham Forest and have 24 teams like in the old days. I'd like that even better. They won't do that because it would use too many Champions League games and Europa League, other things that get in the way. The fixture congestion is already too tight. But 24 teams in the Prem, more games.
Probably be a reason to get rid of the Caribou Cup.
Yep.
Yeah, that probably would spell the end of the Caribou Cup. That's true. Which is the only one where we'd have any chance to win anytime soon. So.
Right.
We kind of hope we keep that one around, But yeah, give the only thing, Liverpool not winning the trophy because of the global pandemic. If you have to have a global pandemic, it's the one little silver lining, But them winning it with an asterisk is almost better in a way, because they can't ever bring it up or talk about it without somebody saying, "Yeah, but."
Yeah. I guess the only nice thing for them is the fact that they've clearly dominated the league, whether it's been by luck or whatever the case may be. They have such a big gap between them and second place that it's not as if they would win on 87 and the next place team has 86, and that's how they would win. Because I think that would honestly be worse than them having the big advantage of points of what they have now. And then, okay, well, here's your trophy, because honestly, I think, and it's definitely not going to happen, but it would be interesting to see if they just kind of wipe the slate clean for everybody in all leagues and just not acted as if the season didn't happen, but you just start over,
I think that might happen. That's what Karen Brady's been pushing for from the beginning, as we know. I hate to agree with her in any way, but it's tough because, again, I don't think many people would. Okay, maybe Everton supporters and Manchester United fans would not like Liverpool winning the title without winning it. I don't think anybody else would care. I don't think anybody else cares. It's been inevitable all season they were going to win. They literally could have won it the next week. Before, you know what I mean? I think if they had won and Manchester City had lost or something along those lines, it was over.
If they'd still been undefeated at this point, it would have been
It's another thing. You know what, PJ? That's a great point. If they hadn't lost to Watford, and I think they lost another one, didn't they?
They almost lost to us, which was
they should have lost to us.
Oh my god!
Fab blew that one. Sorry to say it, but he did. They should have lost to us. But if they hadn't lost to Watford, this would be a much bigger deal. They were 1 to 2 weeks away from winning the trophy. I know it's not a sure thing.
The week that they could have won it, they had a game on a Monday, and then a game again on Saturday. I think that their next game in their schedule was away to Everton, and they might have been able to won the league there on Everton.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Which was their next scheduled game. Yeah, if it wasn't the next scheduled game, it would have been the one at the weekend. But either way, within the next calendar week, they could have won the Premier League, but the thing shut down.
Yeah, I mean it's. Listen, there are people who are really, really suffering here, so I don't want to make light of this thing. I really don't. I genuinely don't. All I'm saying is, again, if you're gonna have a little tiny silver lining to a genuine tragedy,
right.
It's that Liverpool will not be able to win the league outright for the first time in 30 years. I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
Did you guys see the rant that John Oliver did on one of his shows about it? Like right at the beginning of the, when he started doing his show offline, and he was like, "Let me just take a minute," and he just like went off about Liverpool. Like, just give him the trophy.
Is he a Liverpool guy?
Yeah,
he's a huge Liverpool fan.
Yeah.
I think he's from there, I believe.
Yeah, I think or around there. Yeah, but yeah, he's a big Liverpool fan.
I mean, give him the trophy, sure. Honestly, give him the trophy. Fine, let it. But they can't have a parade. They can't do anything with it. And it'll always, forever and ever and ever, go down as the trophy that that they didn't really win. I mean, they did really win it,
and they won't win anything the following year too. It'll be hilarious.
Well, that's the beauty of it, Jason, is that when they go another 30 years, and they honestly, with Klopp in charge and the players they have, they might win the league again next time we play it. You know what I mean? They're very, very good.
They could. Really I think it'd be a lot closer because what was happening this year, hands down, was an anomaly. Just like all the events that kind of led up to Leicester winning it that year, like everybody was not terrible, but people were dropping points. I mean, granted, we took advantage of that. We finished 6th that season, but I mean, when was the last time we won away to Manchester City, away to Arsenal, away to Liverpool?
That Payet season year. I think we finished 7th, if memory serves.
And we beat Liverpool 3 times that year.
Right. Yeah. First time at Anfield since
twice, I think, or once.
First time at Anfield since 1963, I think. Yeah. But you're right, Sully. Right. That was that season when, I mean, everybody bottled it except for Leicester.
Southampton had a game where they won 8-0 that year.
Yeah,
and they were second place for the longest time.
It was a weird season because, at the end of the season, the title came down to Tottenham and Leicester.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, and we know Tottenham, they've been successful recently, but they were really never a contender to win the title before that, and they haven't really been since.
Right.
And then Leicester came out of nowhere. We all know that. So the really big clubs, Manchester United, Chelsea, Manchester City, Arsenal, any of the usual suspects, they bottled it. They just weren't any good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And as you said, we had a lot of tremendous wins. Of course, we had Payet, which was huge for us. But not only that, but it was a weird season, and this season has been totally different. It's been Liverpool from the beginning. Everybody knows it. But yeah, I mean, give them their trophy. Fine, give it to them. But it's just, you can't. You could genuinely, in science fiction, nobody could have made this stuff up. But yeah, well, if the Bundesliga does come back, man, I will be all over that.
I think
everybody will be.
I mean, you're going to get Bundesliga ratings in the U.S. They're going to be Super Bowl level.
It's going to be on every sports channel on my cable because,
Yeah, exactly. There's going to be 50 million Americans watching Red Bull Leipzig versus Freiburg or whoever's, I don't know who's in the Bundesliga outside of the top 4 or 5 anymore. But.
And you flip the stations and it'll be English, Spanish, German, Italian.
It's like Schalke versus Eintracht Frankfurt with a Super Bowl sized audience because it's live sports.
Right.
So yeah, that Leicester winning season, they won it on 81 points. We got 7 on 62, and we were 2 points clear of Liverpool to win Europa League. And Southampton
we finished ahead of Liverpool.
Yeah, Southampton finished 1 point above us at 63 points, but the top 7 are Leicester, Arsenal, Tottenham, Man City, United, Southampton, and us.
See, that's nuts. Southampton in the top 6.
Mm-hmm. Relegation that year was Newcastle, Norwich, and Villa.
Big clubs went down. That's right. Yeah. And the thing I remember best about Tottenham was they didn't even finish second. They finished third in a 2-horse race. Yeah. Because they were the only team the only club that had a chance to catch Leicester, and then they came to the Boleyn and lost to us 1-0. And that was pretty much the end of their title chase. Yep. And then they lost a couple of times after that, and they finished third when they should have finished second. They still managed to finish third and behind their biggest rival. So, well done. Yeah, finishing ahead of Liverpool. When will that happen again?
When we get bought out by the Arabian princes.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna take the Arabian princes. Yeah, it is. It is. Anyway, well, it is about 10 minutes after 10 minutes after 10. Yeah, so great chat room tonight. Nice having everybody here. I saw Ken show up late. That's okay. Glad he got here. Rob's here, our buddy Rob, who's been doing some shows with us. Good to hear from him. I see Kieran and Tony and Foe is here, and Tebow's still here with us, and Ray came around, which is great. You guys got anything else you want to throw in before we sign off?
No, not for me.
Well, I want to thank you as always, PJ and KC from SF, which keep it all to initials. Sally down in out in Sacramento from Denver, and of course Jason, who's in North Carolina. Always good to be on with you guys. Always good to talk to you. It was a lot of fun tonight. We had a good time. I don't know what's going on the channel for the rest of the week. I probably will be back on Sunday night. You guys check the website for the schedule, and everything will be on. Tim says we have a new game show going. I think it's a trivia show. Does that sound right? Have you guys been on the?
Yeah, that's what he was saying earlier.
Yeah, it's a trivia show. So somebody's writing trivia questions. So it should be fun. Yeah, it should be fun. Should be good. I'll probably go on and embarrass myself at some point. Even more than I already do every time I'm on here. So anyway, PJ, Sally, Jason, thank you guys. And as always, come on, you irons.
Come on, you irons.